Alright, this lesson is about the point slope form and the slope intercept form. When you're given scenarios and they want you to find the equation of a line. You can find this in chapter 3 in your book, 256. If you don't have a paper book, remember you also have access to an ebook on my math lab. Alright, so let's just look at some of the questions. Alright, so let's look at here. Let me get some paper. Alright, it says write the point slope form and the slope intercept form of the equation of the line with the slope that 4 and passes through the point -1 and 3. So just let me write that real quick and then we'll do some discussing. So I can move the book. Alright, so two things you gotta remember is what is the point slope form and what's the slope intercept form. So let me get this lined up right. So first thing is just remembering this formula for our point slope form. We use this when they give us a point and give us a slope. So to be able to make an equation of the line, you have to know those two things, always. If they don't straightforward give them to you, they give you enough information that you can find them. So first we're going to start with our point slope form, and we're going to use what they give us. So they said our slope, which remember they also use m is 4, and it goes through point -1 and 3. So this is our x1 and this is our y1. So we're just going to plug it into this equation. So we keep the y and we plug in our y coordinate. Our m they gave us is 4. Keep our x and then our x coordinate. Alright, so that's our point slope form. We can make this a little more simplified by minus and a negative is the same thing as a plus. Well, now they ask for the slope intercept form. And that is this form. And the good news is what you got at the top, as long as you simplify it to y equals, you will have this form, which is our slope intercept form. So let me start with what we had. So the first thing we'll do is distribute. We'll add 3 to both sides. And then we have our slope intercept form, which, remember what this tells us a lot of stuff. Our m, that tells us our slope. So this one is up 4/1. And then our b is our y-intercept. So that means on the y-axis, we are starting at the 7, and we're going up 4/1. So the slope-intercept form is very valuable. It has a lot of information for being able to graph. Alright, so another question is a line passes through the points 4, -3, and -2 and 6, and it says find the equation of the line as a point slope form and a slope intercept form. Alright, so remember the two things I said you had to have. You have to have a point and you have to have a slope. Well, they gave us 2 points, but they didn't give us the slope. But we can use the slope formula to find out what our slope is. And if you just remember this, so this is our first subset of x and y, and this is our second of x and y. So our formula is the change in y, and it doesn't matter what order you subtract them in, as long as you're consistent. If you put this first on the top, then you need to put this first on the bottom. So minus 3 minus 6, 4 minus negative 2. So our formula was the change in y, sorry I didn't mean to make that a, and our change in x. Now I kind of flip-flopped them, but you will still get the same answer as long as you're consistent. So in this case, we want to reduce it. Our slope is negative 3 over 2, which means we go down 3 over 2. So remember, the negative means down. Alright, so now we have the slope. And we have a point. It doesn't matter which point you use. Depending on which point you use, it'll look different in the in-betweens, but when you get down to your slope-intercept form, when you get to your slope-intercept form, you will have the same answer. So I'm just going to choose my first one. So y take away negative 3, m, and then x take away 4. So remember, it's this formula here. That's our slope-intercept form. So that was our answer to A. And then B says, that's our point slope form, sorry. So then B says do our slope-intercept. So first thing I'm going to do, distribute. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. 12 over 2 is the same thing as 6. So if you need to see that, that's where that came from. Then we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So plus 6 minus 3 is a positive 3. So this means on our graph, we'll start at the 3 on the y-axis, we'll go down 3 and over 2, and then we'll have a line. So this was an example where they didn't give you the slope, but we could find the slope from the information they give you. So anytime they give you 2 points, you know you can find the slope. Alright, the next question says, write an equation of the line passing through negative 3, 1 and parallel to the line, and they give us an equation. (2x plus 1). And then they want our point slope form and then the slope intercept form. Alright, so we have our point. We always need a point. We always need a slope. They don't give us the slope, but they use the word parallel. And then parallel slopes mean that they have the same slope. So if we look at the slope of this line, it's 2, or 2 over 1. So that means our slope of our new line will also be 2 over 1, because if it's parallel, it has the same slope. So we'll use our formula. And plug in what we know. So y take away 1, our slope, and x take away negative 3. So there's our point slope form. And then our second half of that question is slope-intercept form. So first thing I want to do is distribute, and then add 1 to both sides. So our new line starts at the 7 on the y-axis and goes up 2 over 1. And it would be parallel to this guy because they have the same slope. Alright, the next example. Let me find a good one. Trying to find one that's a good one in the book. Don't really give you any. Oh, there they are. All right. So they say find a point slope form and slope intercept form of a line that is passing through 2, -3 and perpendicular to this line. Alright, so we need a point and we need a slope. So they gave us the point and they gave us a disguised slope. So if it is perpendicular, which means you have a line that kind of goes like this, it hits it at a 90-degree angle. So that is a perpendicular slope. It just means it's the opposite and it goes the opposite direction, and so like if this one's going up 2/1, then this one will be the opposite of that. Alright, so to find the slope of this perpendicular line, we look at the slope, and perpendicular means it's going to be the opposite reciprocal. Which is a fancy word, math word. Reciprocal. I spelled that wrong. Fancy math word just means you're going to flip your fraction. So we're going to flip this, and then opposite just means it's going to be the opposite sign. If it was a positive, now it's a negative. And then we can kind of simplify this. So our slope of this new line that we're creating is going to be -3. Plug in what we know. Y, take away -3. Our slope, x minus 2. So there is our point slope form. Simplify it to get our slope intercept form. Distribute first. Subtract 3 from both sides. So there's an example of perpendicular, and then there's an example of parallel. So just remember, if they tell you it's parallel to a certain line, you need to find the same slope of that line. If they tell you it's perpendicular to a certain line, then you know you're going to find the opposite reciprocal. Reciprocal. I had it spelled right the first time, it just looked weird. Alright, let's see if we can find one more that might stump you. Alright, so they say the slope is a half and it passes through the origin. So they gave you a slope and they gave you a disguised point. What does origin mean? Well, it just means it goes through the middle of the graph, which is 0, 0. So y, take away 0, equals a half x minus 0. So there's your point slope form, or slope, yeah, point slope. And then we're going to simplify it. And that is our point slope form. So what this means, if there is no plus or minus here, that means it's going to start at the 0, 0, 0 on the y, and then go up 1/2. It's about as hard as I see. So again, just you always wanting to look for a slope, and you're always wanting to look for a point. Most of the time they'll give you a point and you're needing to find the slope. Sometimes they'll use fancy words or try to disguise the point by using the word origin or they might say it has an intercept of. And remember, if they use the word x-intercept, that just means that they'll give you that number, but the other point will be 0. Or if they say y-intercept is, this will be 0 and they'll give you that number. So if they don't give you the point straightforward, it's slightly disguised and they just want you to use what you know. Alright, if you have any questions, please let me know.